Ma'am, please don't leave the store. Vanessa Blake stopped 3 steps from the glass doors of Reed and Vale, her left hand still lifted, the diamond on her finger catching the white showroom lights like it had been waiting to accuse her. Outside, rain slid down Madison Avenue in silver lines, blurring the black town cars at the curb. Inside, everything was too quiet. The champagne glasses on the private counter had not been touched. The velvet tray sat open beneath the chandelier. And 2 security officers in dark suits had moved into place without raising their voices, without making a scene, without giving Vanessa the luxury of pretending this was a misunderstanding. Nathan Whitmore stepped in front of her, tall, polished, and visibly irritated, the kind of man who believed every locked door opened faster when his name was spoken sharply enough. "There must be some mistake," he said, placing his black card on the marble counter with 2 fingers. "Do you know who I am?" Margaret Harlow, the senior jeweler, looked at him through rimless glasses. She wore black gloves, the kind used for diamonds, heirlooms, and things too valuable to be touched carelessly. Her expression did not change. "Yes, Mr. Whitmore," she said softly. "That is exactly why security is here." Vanessa let out a small laugh, too bright, too thin, and curled her fingers inward, as if hiding the ring could erase the last 30 minutes. But nothing in Reed and Vale disappeared that easily. Not a custom stone. Not a private commission. Not a hidden engraving registered years earlier under another woman's name. Nathan turned toward the staff, his jaw tight. "My fiancé came here for a simple resizing." The word fiancé floated in the cold air like perfume sprayed over smoke. Vanessa straightened when she heard it, trying to recover the glow she had walked in with half an hour ago, when she had placed her hand on the counter and let the 5-carat diamond announce her victory before she said a word. Back then, she had smiled at Margaret and said the ring used to belong to someone who no longer mattered. Back then, Nathan had not corrected her. Back then, neither of them knew that the ring was not just jewelry. It was a family stone, redesigned from an older diamond, logged in a private archive, insured under one name, and marked beneath the band with letters too small for vanity to notice. E.C. Emily Carter. The wife Nathan had not yet divorced. The woman Vanessa thought had been erased. Margaret opened a slim folder and placed it on the counter, careful as a priest setting down a confession. Nathan did not touch it. Vanessa's smile faded first. Then the private elevator behind the showroom gave a soft chime. Every face turned. The doors opened, and Emily Carter stepped out in an ivory coat, empty-handed except for a velvet box Nathan had never seen before. 30 minutes earlier, before the showroom became silent enough to hear rain tapping against the glass, Vanessa Blake had entered Reed and Vale as if the store had been built for her reflection. She paused just inside the doors, letting the warm air lift the scent of expensive perfume from her coat, then placed her left hand on Nathan Whitmore's arm so the diamond would face the room. It was 5 carats, oval cut, set in platinum, bright enough to make strangers glance twice and polite enough to make them pretend they had not. Vanessa noticed every glance. She lived on them. Nathan did not look at the ring. That was the first thing Margaret Harlow saw from behind the counter. Men in love usually stared at the hand they had chosen. Nathan stared at his phone, at the market numbers moving across the screen, at his own importance reflected in the glass. Vanessa stepped forward and spread her fingers over the marble like a woman laying claim to a country. "We need this resized," she said, smiling at Margaret with the soft cruelty of someone who expected service, not questions. "It is a little tight." Margaret looked at the ring, then at her face. "Of course. Is this a Reed and Vale piece?" Vanessa's smile widened. "I believe so. It was purchased here years ago." Nathan finally looked up. "It was mine to give," he said, before anyone had asked. The sentence landed too quickly, too polished, like a rehearsed answer slipping out before the accusation. Margaret nodded once, professional and unreadable. "May I ask, whose name the original commission was under?" Vanessa laughed lightly, turning toward Nathan as if the question were beneath them. "His wife's, probably. Ex-wife soon enough." The last words were sweet, but the sweetness had edges. A young associate behind the counter lowered his eyes. Nathan's mouth tightened, not with shame, but with impatience. "Can you just do the resizing? We have dinner in Tribeca at 8. Margaret did not move faster. She never did when someone tried to buy speed with arrogance. She placed a black velvet tray on the counter and held out her gloved hand. Vanessa hesitated for only a second before sliding the ring off. The pale mark it left on her finger exposed the truth more clearly than she wanted. It did not fit her. Not the band, not the history, not the promise buried inside it. Margaret carried the ring toward the inspection room, where the lights were cooler and the walls held no mirrors. Vanessa watched her go, then leaned close to Nathan and whispered something that made him exhale through his nose. Not quite a laugh. He touched her waist briefly, a public gesture designed to reassure her and impress anyone watching. But Margaret had already placed the ring beneath the microscope. The diamond was flawless, but old. The setting was newer, custom-made. Along the inner curve of the platinum band, almost invisible beneath years of polish, were 2 tiny letters and a private archive number. EC read Archive 714. Margaret's fingers stilled. She entered the number into the secure system. The screen loaded slowly, each second sharpening the air around her. Then the file opened. Owner of record, Emily Eleanor Carter. Status, reported missing. Special note, family heirloom, not transferable without written authorization. Margaret looked through the narrow window toward the showroom. Vanessa was smiling at her own reflection. Nathan was still checking his phone. Neither of them knew the ring had just told the truth before Emily ever had to say a word. Across town, while Vanessa smiled at her reflection and Nathan treated betrayal like a scheduling inconvenience, Emily Carter stood in the kitchen of the brownstone she had once called home. The room was quiet in the way rooms become quiet after love has left them, but the furniture has not. Rain touched the windows softly. The clock above the stove moved with a patient little click. On the counter lay an open jewelry safe, its velvet interior divided into careful spaces, one of them empty. Emily did not cry when she saw it. That was the part that would have surprised Nathan most. He had mistaken silence for weakness for so long that he forgot silence could also be evidence gathering, memory sharpening, dignity learning to stand without sound. She touched the pale circle on her finger where the ring used to rest, not because she missed the man who gave it to her, but because she remembered the woman who had believed him. Years earlier, Nathan had proposed under a white awning outside a small restaurant in Boston, his suit damp from the rain, his hands trembling just enough to make her laugh. The diamond had belonged to her mother before that, and to her grandmother before her, carried through ordinary marriages, hospital rooms, mortgage papers, Sunday dinners, and all the small American rituals that make a family feel permanent. Emily had let Reed and Vale redesign it after her mother passed, not to make it larger, but to make it hers. Nathan knew that. He knew exactly what it meant. That was why taking it hurt more than any affair ever could. An affair was a betrayal of vows. This was an attempt to remove her from her own history. Her phone lit up on the counter. A photo had been sent by a friend who did not add commentary because none was needed. Vanessa sat in the passenger seat of Nathan's car, holding up her hand toward the camera, the diamond flashing beneath a caption about new beginnings. Emily looked at the picture for a long moment. Then she set the phone down face up, as if even the screen deserved to witness what came next. She did not call Nathan. She did not type a message that could be twisted later. She opened her laptop, entered the secure Reed and Vale client portal, and uploaded 3 documents: the original commission receipt, the insurance record, and the trust letter showing the diamond had never been marital property. Her fingers moved steadily. No shaking. No hesitation. In the subject line, she wrote, "Missing heirloom engagement ring, possible unauthorized transfer." Then she attached the photograph of Vanessa wearing it. The final file came from the small velvet box beside her elbow, a box Nathan had never opened because it contained the part of Emily he never bothered to understand. Inside was her mother's handwritten note from the day the diamond was reset. "Wear this only where your name is honored." Emily read the sentence once, closed the lid, and placed it in her coat pocket. Minutes later, Reed and Vale confirmed receipt of her report. A second message arrived from Margaret Harlow herself, polite but urgent, asking whether Emily could come to the Madison Avenue showroom. Emily looked around the kitchen one last time, at the 2 coffee mugs still hanging beside the sink, at the framed wedding photo turned face down on the table, at the house where she had spent years shrinking herself to keep peace with a man who kept moving the walls. Then she picked up her keys. She did not dress for revenge. She chose an ivory coat, low heels, and no jewelry at all. By the time Nathan realized the store had stopped treating him like a customer, Emily was already in a cab heading uptown, carrying a velvet box, a legal truth, and a silence sharp enough to cut through every lie waiting behind the glass doors. Back inside Reed and Vale, Margaret Harlow did not return to the showroom right away. The first archive result had been enough to stop the resizing, but not enough for the feeling tightening beneath her ribs. After 30 years around diamonds, she had learned that expensive objects carried two kinds of stories: the one clients told at the counter, and the one hidden in the metal when no one expected it to speak. She adjusted the microscope, lowered the light, and turned the ring slowly with a pair of narrow jeweler's tweezers. The initials and archive number had already appeared along the inner curve, but something about the band felt unusual, a faint interruption beneath the polish, too deliberate to beware. Margaret changed the angle again. A cool blue beam slid across the platinum. For one breath, nothing happened. Then a second line emerged, softer than a scratch, finer than a strand of hair. For Eleanor. Then Emily. Never to be sold. Margaret went still. The showroom beyond the glass blurred into pale shapes. Vanessa's cream coat, Nathan's dark suit, the soft shine of marble, the false calm of people who believed money could smooth over anything. Margaret had seen arguments over watches, broken engagements, family disputes over earrings left in wills, but this was different. This was not a gift being reclaimed because love had failed. This was a legacy that someone had carried out of a private safe and placed on another woman's finger as if history had no owner. She scanned the engraving and uploaded the image to the secure file. Within seconds, the system attached it to Emily Carter's report. The receipt, the insurance record, the trust letter, and now the hidden inscription formed a quiet chain that Nathan could not charm, purchase, or rename. Margaret removed her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose once, not from confusion, but from the weight of knowing exactly what had to happen next. In the showroom, Vanessa had started pacing near a display of diamond bracelets, pretending to admire them while watching the inspection room door every few seconds. Her confidence had changed texture. It was still shiny, but brittle now, like glass warmed too quickly. Nathan stood with one hand in his pocket, speaking into his phone in a low voice, telling someone he might be late to dinner, making the delay sound like a favor he was granting the world. Margaret heard only fragments through the sealed glass, but she did not need the words. Men like Nathan often mistook inconvenience for insult. They were most dangerous to their own secrets when asked to wait. She placed the ring into a small black evidence tray, printed the archive confirmation, and pressed a discreet button under the desk. The message went not to the front desk, but upstairs. Private client matter. Restricted heirloom. Security required. Then Margaret did one more thing. She opened the client contact page and sent Emily a brief update, written with the careful language of a woman who understood that calm could be kinder than pity. Mrs. Carter, the item has been identified. Please come to the Madison Avenue showroom when you are able. We will hold it securely until you arrive. When Margaret stepped back into the showroom, Nathan looked up with irritation already prepared. Vanessa smiled too quickly. Finally, she said, holding out her hand, expecting the diamond to return to her finger. Margaret placed the black tray on the counter, but kept her gloved hand over it. I am afraid we cannot complete the resizing today. Nathan frowned. Why not? Margaret met his eyes. Because this ring contains a protected family inscription, and the registered owner has not authorized any alteration. Vanessa's face lost a shade of color. Nathan leaned closer, his voice lowering. You are making a mistake. Margaret did not step back. Across the room, the private elevator gave a soft mechanical hum, beginning its descent from the executive floor. No, Mr. Whitmore, she said. The mistake was made before you walked in. The private elevator opened with a sound so gentle it made the silence feel more expensive. A man stepped out in a charcoal suit. No visible logo, no hurried expression, no need to announce himself. He had the kind of calm that came from owning the room without asking permission from it. Vanessa looked him over once and decided, wrongly, that he was another manager sent to smooth over a wealthy client's complaint. Nathan did not look at him at all. He was too busy staring at Margaret, as if irritation could force the diamond back onto Vanessa's finger. I paid for that ring, he said. Margaret kept her gloved hand over the black tray. The archive does not show you as the owner. Nathan gave a short laugh, the kind used by men who expected rules to become flexible around their wallets. It was purchased during my marriage. That makes it a marital asset. The man from the elevator stopped beside Margaret. Only then did the younger associate straighten behind the counter. Vanessa noticed. Her smile weakened. Margaret slid the printed file toward him, and he read it without touching the ring. The center stone predates the marriage by 42 years, he said. His voice was low, polished, and unbothered. It was transferred through the Carter Family Trust, redesigned here, and registered under Emily Eleanor Carter as sole beneficiary. Nathan finally turned to him. And you are? The man closed the folder. Alexander Reed. The name landed quietly, but every employee in the showroom felt it. Reed, as in Reed and Vale. Vanessa shifted her weight. Nathan blinked once, then recovered too quickly. Good. Then you can fix this. Alexander looked at the black card still sitting on the marble counter, untouched and useless. There is nothing to fix, Mr. Whitmore. There is only documentation. He nodded toward the screen behind Margaret, where the private archive had opened under restricted access. A photograph of the ring appeared beside Emily's name, followed by the insurance record, the trust letter, the hidden inscription, and the missing item report filed less than 1 hour earlier. Vanessa stared at the words as if reading them slowly might change them. Missing, she whispered. Nathan's jaw moved, but no answer came. The word had done what Emily had not needed to do. It had entered the room and taken a seat at the counter. Margaret turned the monitor slightly, not toward the public floor, but enough for Nathan and Vanessa to see the final note attached to the file. Any attempted alteration requires owner authorization and security review. Vanessa drew her left hand toward her chest, suddenly aware of how bare the finger looked without the diamond. A few minutes earlier, she had felt chosen. Now the pale mark around her skin looked like evidence of a role she had borrowed too soon. Nathan, she said, softer this time. You told me she gave it back. Nathan looked at her, then at Alexander, then at the ring. For the first time since entering the store, he seemed less angry than cornered by his own version of events. Alexander did not raise his voice. He did not accuse. He simply placed the folder flat on the counter and said, Mrs. Carter is on her way. The showroom seemed to shrink around Nathan. Outside, rain continued sliding down the glass, turning Madison Avenue into a blur of headlights and gray pavement. Inside, the diamond waited in its black tray, no longer a promise, no longer a trophy, but a witness. Then the front doors opened, and every reflection in the glass turned toward the woman stepping in from the rain. Emily Carter stepped into Reed and Vale with rain shining softly on the shoulders of her ivory coat, and the showroom changed before anyone spoke. It was not dramatic in the way Vanessa had expected. No raised voice, no trembling hands, no scene large enough for strangers to film from the sidewalk. Emily simply stood there, calm and pale under the chandelier light, carrying a small velvet box in one hand and a folded leather envelope in the other. For a second, Nathan looked relieved, as if the woman he had underestimated had arrived only to be managed. Then he saw her face. There was no panic in it, no pleading, no familiar softness he could use as a doorway back into control. Margaret stepped away from the counter with the respect given to a registered owner, not a wounded wife. Mrs. Carter, she said, thank you for coming. Vanessa's eyes moved from Emily to the black tray, then back again, trying to assemble a version of the room where she still belonged at Nathan's side. This is ridiculous, she said, but her voice had lost its shine. He gave it to me. Emily looked at her left hand, at the faint mark where the ring had been, then at the diamond resting under Margaret's gloved fingers. I am sure he did, she said quietly. The words were not angry. That made them worse. Nathan cleared his throat. Emily, we can discuss this somewhere private. She turned to him then, and the years between them seemed to gather in the space of one slow breath. The dinners where she smiled through humiliation, the charity events where he left her standing alone, the nights he came home smelling like expensive restaurants and excuses. But Emily did not bring any of that into the room. She brought documents. She placed the leather envelope on the marble counter and opened it with careful hands. My attorney has already received copies, she said. So has the insurance company. Nathan's expression sharpened. Attorney? Alexander Reed stepped closer, his presence steady beside Margaret. Mr. Whitmore, before this proceeds any further, I need to ask one question for the store record. Did Mrs. Carter authorize you to remove this ring from her private safe and present it to Miss Blake? The question was soft, almost courteous, but it closed around Nathan like a lock. He looked at Emily, then at Vanessa, then at the ring. Half a second passed. In that half second, Vanessa finally understood that silence could answer more clearly than a confession. Emily did not look away. Nathan tried to recover. It was in my house. Emily opened the velvet box in her hand. Inside was a yellowed handwritten note, protected beneath glass, the ink faded but still legible. It was in my family, she said. Margaret read the note without touching it. Were this only where your name is honored? Vanessa's mouth parted slightly, but nothing came out. The diamond on the tray no longer looked like something glamorous. It looked old, loved, and deeply misplaced. Emily closed the box again. She did not reach for the ring. That restraint drew every eye more powerfully than grief ever could. Nathan lowered his voice. You are embarrassing me. For the first time that evening, Emily almost smiled. No, Nathan, she said. You brought another woman here wearing my mother's diamond. I only arrived after the truth did. Outside, a black car stopped at the curb. Inside, Alexander nodded once to security, and the glass doors behind Emily locked with a soft, final click. The soft click of the glass doors did not sound like a threat. It sounded like procedure. That made it colder. Vanessa looked toward the entrance, then toward Alexander Reed, trying to decide whether to be offended or afraid. In a place like Reed and Vale, no one raised a voice unless they had already lost control. The staff moved with practiced restraint. One associate guided the only other customer toward a private viewing room. Another closed the diamond display case with a velvet quietness. Within seconds, the showroom became something else entirely, not a store, not a stage, but a room where every polished surface reflected the same question. Who had the right to touch what belonged to Emily Carter? Nathan noticed the shift and hated it. He adjusted his cuff, the small movement revealing more panic than confidence. This is absurd, he said. You are locking doors over a family misunderstanding. Emily looked at him as if she had finally grown tired of translating cruelty into nicer words. Family misunderstandings do not usually require someone else to wear my mother's diamond to dinner in Tribeca. Vanessa flinched at the mention of dinner, not because the restaurant mattered, but because it exposed the smallness of the plan. A stolen heirloom, a resized band, a reservation, a photograph, a performance of victory over a woman who had not even been invited to defend herself. Margaret placed the printed archive records in a neat line across the counter. Emily's name appeared again and again, on the original commission, on the insurance policy, on the trust documentation, on the missing item report. Nathan's name appeared only in one place, as spouse at time of redesign. Not owner, not beneficiary, not authorized holder. Vanessa stared at the papers, her lips pressed together until the careful gloss of her confidence began to crack. Nathan, she said quietly, you said she left it behind. Emily did not answer for him. That was the mercy and the punishment. She let him stand inside the story he had sold. Nathan's eyes hardened. She did leave it behind. She left everything behind when she stopped being my wife in any meaningful sense. For the first time, something moved across Emily's face. Not pain, recognition. He had wanted the room to hear that she was replaceable, that her absence gave him ownership, that her silence meant surrender. Instead, his words settled over the marble like dust. Emily opened the leather envelope and removed a single page. This is the separation inventory you signed 2 weeks ago, she said. You acknowledged that all Carter family assets remained in my possession. Nathan stared at the page. Vanessa turned to him fully now, no longer performing for the mirror or the room. You signed that. He said nothing. Alexander took the document and reviewed the signature with calm precision. Mr. Whitmore, for store purposes, this confirms that the item was not abandoned, gifted, or released. Nathan gave a small, humorless smile. Store purposes. You people are making this sound official. Alexander looked up. It is official. Outside, a second black car stopped by the curb, its headlights stretching across the wet pavement. Emily noticed it, but did not turn. She had already seen the message from her attorney on the ride over, already approved the next step, already understood that the night was no longer about persuading Nathan to admit the truth. It was about making sure the truth had witnesses. Vanessa's eyes dropped to the black tray where the ring waited, untouched. "I did not know," she whispered, and for once, the sentence did not sound like an excuse. It sounded like a woman realizing she had not been chosen above Emily. She had been used against her. Emily finally looked at her, calm but not cruel. "Now you do." Nathan reached for the black card still lying on the counter, as if retrieving it could restore him. Emily watched the movement, then closed the velvet box in her hand. The sound was small, final, and more elegant than anger. "Keep the dinner reservation," she said. "But you will not leave with my history." Alexander Reed did not move until Emily finished speaking. In the stillness that followed, he lifted one hand, and Margaret placed the sealed archive folder beside Emily's leather envelope. The two records looked ordinary on the marble counter, just paper, ink, signatures, dates. But together they carried more weight than Nathan's name, his card, or the expensive suit he had worn into the store like armor. "There is one more matter," Alexander said. Nathan's eyes narrowed. "I think you have done enough." Alexander looked at him with the patience of a man who had learned long ago that arrogance often became loudest right before it ran out of room. "Not quite." He opened the folder to the final page and turned it toward Emily first, not Nathan, because the room had already learned who deserved respect. When Reed and Vale redesigned the Carter diamond, Mrs. Carter's mother added a private protection clause. Any unauthorized transfer, alteration, sale, or attempted removal of the stone triggers a trust review. Vanessa looked from the document to Emily. "A trust review?" Margaret answered gently. "It means the diamond was never simply a ring." Emily's gaze stayed on the page, but her face did not change. She had known about the clause, but seeing it printed beneath her mother's signature made the air leave her lungs in a slower, quieter way. Her mother had protected her before Emily even knew she would need protection. Nathan gave a sharp exhale. "This is ridiculous. It is a piece of jewelry." Emily finally looked up. "No, Nathan. To you, it was a prop." The words landed cleanly. No tremor. No performance. Just a truth returned to its rightful owner. Alexander tapped the document once. "Because the item was reported missing and brought here for alteration by someone other than the owner, our obligation is to preserve it, document the attempt, and release it only under Mrs. Carter's authorization or a court order." Nathan's expression changed at the word court. It was brief, but Emily saw it. So did Vanessa. So did everyone. The second black car outside had not been for show. A woman in a navy coat entered through the side door carrying a slim briefcase. Emily's attorney, Claire Donovan, did not rush. She gave Emily a small nod, then placed another envelope beside the others. "The emergency property filing has been accepted electronically," Claire said. "The ring remains protected, and the court will receive the full store report by morning." Vanessa went very still. Nathan looked as if the floor had shifted beneath his polished shoes. "Emily," he said, and this time her name sounded different. Smaller, less like a command, more like a door he had just found locked from the other side. She did not answer. Claire slid a copy of the filing toward him. "You are also being notified that the separation inventory is now under review." The showroom lights gleamed over the diamond in the tray. For years, Nathan had made Emily feel invisible in public, smiling beside her while slowly removing her from rooms, conversations, decisions, and finally her own home. Now the room was full of witnesses, and every document carried her name in black ink. Vanessa stared at the ring, then at Nathan, finally understanding that she had never been handed a future. She had been handed evidence. "You told me she was nothing without you," she whispered. Emily closed the velvet box and slipped it into her coat pocket. Then she looked at Vanessa, not with pity, not with triumph, but with the tired clarity of a woman who had survived the same lie from a closer distance. That is what he tells women before he takes something from them. Nathan opened his mouth, but no polished sentence came out. Alexander nodded to Margaret. Margaret lifted the black tray and carried the ring to the secure vault behind the counter, where the steel door opened with a soft mechanical sigh. Emily watched the diamond disappear into safety, and for the first time that night, she let herself breathe. The vault door closed behind the diamond, and the sound moved through reed and veil like the final note of a song no one had wanted to hear. Emily stood still, her ivory coat bright beneath the chandelier, Her hands empty now except for the leather envelope Claire Donovan had returned to her. For years, empty hands had made her feel ashamed, as if losing Nathan meant losing proof that she had once been loved. Tonight, empty hands felt clean. Nathan watched the vault, then Emily, as if still waiting for the room to change its mind and place him back at the center. "Emily," he said again, quieter than before. She turned toward him, not because he deserved an answer, but because she had spent too many years looking away to keep peace. His face was pale under the showroom lights, his confidence stripped down to something thin and ordinary. "We should talk," he said. "Not here. Not with all of this." Emily looked at the papers on the counter, then at Vanessa standing a few feet away, no longer shining, no longer posing, only staring at the space where the ring had been. "All of this," Emily said softly, "is what you created when you thought I would stay silent." Nathan swallowed. He reached for the old tenderness in his voice, the one he used when apologies were meant to erase instead of repair. "I made a mistake." Emily almost believed that he believed it. Not that he had taken the ring. Not that he had humiliated her. Only that he had been caught somewhere too elegant for denial to survive. Claire gathered the documents with calm hands. Alexander signed the store report. Margaret placed a receipt of secure custody into Emily's palm, and for a moment, Emily felt the small weight of paper more deeply than the 5 carats locked behind steel. The paper said what Nathan never had. Her name mattered. Her history mattered. Her consent mattered. Security opened the glass doors. The rain had softened to a mist, and Madison Avenue glowed with yellow cab lights and wet pavement. Vanessa stepped aside as Emily passed, her voice barely above the hush of the store. "I really did not know it was her mother's." Emily paused. She looked at Vanessa, and there was no victory in her eyes, only distance. "Now you know what kind of man needs to steal a woman's past to impress another one." Vanessa looked down. Nathan did not follow Emily right away. Perhaps he expected her to turn back. Perhaps he expected tears. Perhaps he expected the woman he had left in that quiet kitchen to appear one last time and beg for a different ending. But Emily walked through the doors without wearing the ring, without touching his arm, without asking for anything he was no longer capable of giving. Outside, her cab waited at the curb. She slipped into the back seat, set the custody receipt beside the velvet box, and watched Reed and Vale shrink in the rain-streaked window. Behind the glass, Nathan stood in the showroom surrounded by marble, diamonds, and witnesses, finally understanding that he had not lost a wife that night. He had lost the right to rewrite her. Emily looked at her bare finger once, then closed her hand gently in her lap. The diamond would remain in the vault until the court decided where history belonged. But Emily already knew where she belonged. Not in a marriage built on performance. Not in a house where love had become a transaction. Not beside a man who confused possession with devotion. The cab turned onto 5th Avenue, and the city lights opened before her. Like a quiet road home. She did not get him back. She got herself back. And that was the only ending worthy of her name.